Thanks for being here. This is Truthseekers with your host, Stephen Campion. Please rate, like and comment on our videos or podcasts. If you are listening to an audio podcast, please rate us 5 stars to help us rise in the search rankings. If you are watching on YouTube, please like, comment and subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to an audio podcast, we love and appreciate you listeners, but you are missing the live tapings. All our shows are recorded live with video feed. We'd love you to come be a part of our live broadcasts and tapings for the podcast. Head on over to YouTube, click the search tool, the little magnifying glass, put Truthseekers, one word in the search bar, and hit enter. You'll see a strange and mysterious guy with sunglasses. That means you found the channel. Go there, smash the subscribe button and hit the notification bell to receive up-to-date info on our YouTube channel. We welcome you to be a part of our live taping and our chat room during the live broadcasts. Seek the truth. Speak the truth. This is Truthseekers. Truthseekers.
Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. Welcome old friends and hopefully some new friends. So for quite some time now, many of you have constantly asked me a question, which is essentially, if so many of these UFO cases are hoaxes or frauds or being sold by, let's just say, less than credible people using less than credible evidence, what cases do you think are truly mysterious or are real? And there could be a lot of definitions of what people mean by the term real. I'm certain that many of you, when you use that term, you mean, are these real cases involving extraterrestrial visitation on Earth or aliens or non-human entities? And to be very honest, I struggle with cases that I think are truly a mystery. And throughout our time here, we have seen that in many or most UFO cases, there exists what I would call a financial incentive for people to over sensationalize the story, to, sort of massage the available data. I've used that term. Many of the less than credible people who sell many UFO stories will massage the available data to do what I call mystery making. You know, it's not a mystery if when you peel back a few layers of deception, you find that this case is not very credible. Well, tonight we're going to look into a case that I do believe is a true and genuine mystery. Cue that meme, right? I'm not saying it was aliens, but it was aliens. And no, I'm not saying that tonight's case was caused by extraterrestrial visitation on Earth. But what I am saying is that this case has been a true and enduring mystery for decades now, since 1967, when it first originally occurred. Interestingly, I like to make sure that you learn things every day. And today I learned something strange, and that is if you are broadcasting live to Twitch, you cannot use the word shag in your title. So I apologize to you Twitch viewers who may just see the Harbor incident. It's the Shag Harbour incident. I'm not sure, but just a funny side note, you cannot, I learned something today, and that is that you cannot use the term shag on a Twitch live stream. So we learn something new every day. You know, I'm sure I'm aware of the slang meaning of the word, but Shag Harbour is the name of the location where this famous UFO incident occurred. So we're going to be doing quite a deep dive into this. And I have a lot of information to share with you. And as always, well, I always say I'm going to do this, but today I am actually on the ball. So if you look in the description of the video, the little text body below the video, you will see the sources I am going to use. And I want to thank Mr. Jeff Knox on Twitter who shared these. It was recently the anniversary of this event. We just missed it. And yeah, I probably should have did this yesterday. However, I had plenty of work still to do to prepare tonight's presentation for you. So after this presentation, which will include the government documents, which will include the original news reports and more, we'll be having a discussion panel, or we'll be attempting to. And we often do open up the doors here and allow anybody to join. But tonight I'm going to ask one thing, and that is, if you just want to come here and tell us about what drugs you're doing tonight, please don't join our panel. I'd like to get people who perhaps know something about this case or are familiar with it and have some opinions to share. If you're looking for a party stream, I'm sure there's one somewhere on the internet. We're going to try to keep things professional tonight. So we'd prefer to have nobody drunk falling off their chair during the panel discussion, as is sort of become customary when we have a panel. But I think maybe that applies to like just an open panel discussion. So tonight, the panel discussion, I would like to focus solely, or maybe we'll just do the presentation if nobody's interested in joining or has anything to share or add to the discussion. But we'll attempt to open things up after tonight's presentation. So I have been busily looking into this case for quite some time. And I have to say that, like I said, this one is a head scratcher. And there is a reason why I believe that this is one of the best cases. And the reason is because of there is so much available data, so much available evidence. This case has been called Canada's Roswell, even though it bears little resemblance to Roswell. Both cases, by the way, certainly involve a UFO and a crash. But this one is quite different. After all, and by the way, I have produced a series of 2 very good videos about the history of UFO crashes. This one I purposefully left out because the rest of the crashes that we covered, we did some videos titled A Not So Brief History of UFO Crashes Part 1 and A Not So Brief History of UFO Crashes Part 2. And in those previous videos, Most of the crashes that we covered for those involve some recovery efforts, and this one does too, but the difference is this case, there is not solid evidence that anything was recovered, and there was no talk of extraterrestrial bodies, as in most of the other cases that we covered in our previous series. So if you're just joining us, we're doing a deep dive into the Shag Harbour UFO incident of 1967. And we'll begin with saying and recognizing that the Shag Harbour UFO incident of October 1967 remains one of the most mysterious, enigmatic, and well-documented cases in the history of this mysterious enigma known as UFOs. Tonight, we'll be delving into the timeline of events, some eyewitness accounts. We'll be delving into further evidence, investigations, including possible explanations for what really occurred here. We'll discuss some of the conspiracy theories around this event and the enduring cultural impact of this mysterious occurrence. So I thought I was going to try to give a synopsis of events, but it turns out sometimes it's best not to reinvent the wheel. So we'll put our fair use banner, and in the description of the video is a link to this explanation of events that I found, which we will be sharing with you and discussing. So this is fair use. This is a transformative work. We'll be discussing and critiquing the video that we are sharing, using it for educational purposes. This means that certainly qualifies as fair use. But before we begin, I want to recognize and welcome all of you in the live chat. We've got a great deal of attendance already tonight. And sometimes I recognize, interestingly, that people keep asking me to do some of these deep dives, and then we do them. And if it's not so exciting as some of the other more modern cases or happenings or events that we cover, our attendance is not very good, but we're already seeing quite a good attendance in live chats tonight, whether you're chatting on the Twitch chat, in the Rumble chat, the Pill chat, the YouTube chat, wherever you're chatting. We recognize and welcome all of you. Thank you for being here. So we begin our exploration into this strange and mysterious occurrence with an explanation of events. And here we see the actual Shag Harbour. This, by the way, there is a big sign, and I thought it was interesting to note that is Bob Lazar's sport model, is the actual UFO that they have on the sign at the actual crash site. Bob Lazar, and by the way, just to be clear, the UFO that was described bear little to no resemblance to the actual Bob Lazar sport model that we see depicted in the graphic at the crash site.
On a recent trip to visit family in Nova Scotia, I traveled through a small fishing community that is well known in the region for an incident that happened in 1967. It was not my first time passing through the community, and growing up not far away, I remember hearing stories about the incident. The Shag Harbour UFO incident occurred on October 4th, 1967, when it was reported that an unidentified object crashed into the ocean near Shag Harbour, Nova Scotia. At around 11 p.m. on October 4th, 1967, several witnesses reported seeing lights in the sky and what appeared to be an object descending into the water.
Yeah, and this is where it gets interesting, because we hear talk about the so-called, we hear the term transmedium, meaning some sort of vehicle that can, go through both air, perhaps space, and perhaps water equally well, able to traverse all three of those mediums. And this object may qualify as one of the first, or at least one of the most well-documented cases of what may be a transmedium object, because not only was this UFO spotted in the sky, but it is later believed that it was tracked under the ocean, which makes it quite unique as far as UFO cases go, because um, and maybe brings the argument for this being some sort of exotic technology, because what vehicle do you know that can fly in the sky and then traverse miles in the ocean after going under the water? This has led many to speculate about the perhaps extraterrestrial origins of the object. Um, let's get back to this, friends.
A local resident, Laurie Wickens, and 4 of his friends made the initial report to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. As they drove through the community on Highway 3, they noticed what appeared to be a sizable object descending into the water. They saw what they believed to be an aircraft that had crashed.
Yes, so the initial reports or initial witness reports seem to indicate that people thought it was some sort of airplane that was in trouble and was crashing into the ocean, and the witnesses responded as appropriately, or as you would if you saw an airplane crashing down.
When they reached a better viewing position, they could see a floating object just offshore. Officers from the RCMP who were dispatched to the scene along with other witnesses.
And by the way, RCMP is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. It's just Canadian police.
Saw a yellow light bob on the surface, drift, and then vanish. A rescue operation was quickly put together. Local fishermen and a search and rescue Coast Guard cutter searched the area.
Yeah, so it's interesting that the local townspeople, hearing reports of a plane crash or something crashing into the ocean from the sky, put together a search effort to go and perhaps help, if it was indeed a plane crash, to go help and try to find and rescue the survivors.
The fishermen and other rescuers who assisted in the search saw no debris, only a mysterious long patch of thick yellow foam.
Yes, and much has been talked about. They saw some sort of strange, thick yellow foam. And I was curious about this because I had heard about this crash situation many, many times. And so, I reached out to somebody that I know that knows a lot about airplanes, and asked him if anything in a crashing plane could cause yellow foam on the ocean, surface. And he said, I don't know, maybe if it was a cargo plane loaded with soap, and laughed. So there's a great mystery around this strange yellow foam residue that many witnesses reported seeing. Now, I've been on the ocean many times in boats, and I've seen, I guess, foam on the surface, but not as described by these witnesses. So what was this? Was this some strange, strange artifact that was ejected from whatever this craft was? Was it a byproduct of the salt water hitting the surfaces of this craft that came down? This is one of the mysteries of this case. What was the yellow foam?
Once every aircraft, including military, private, and commercial, had been accounted for, authorities quickly ruled out a plane crash.
Yes, so just so everybody's aware, if you're flying in any sort of airplane, you have to file a flight plan. And so they checked the flight plans, any flight plans that would be flying over that area or near that area or around that area, and quickly ruled out that it was not at least a conventional airplane or helicopter or aircraft, because if it had been, there would be a flight plan, and they would have some indication of this being a conventional aircraft. This has led many to rule out that it was a conventional aircraft, claiming it couldn't have been a conventional aircraft, or the authorities would have known that pretty quickly.
The unknown object was officially classified as a UFO in Government of Canada documents. A story was featured on the front page of the Halifax newspaper, the Chronicle Herald, on October 7th. The headline read, "Could be something concrete in Shag Harbour UFO."
Yes, and so the headline is quite interesting. Could be something concrete. In other words, there really could be something to this case. Because, so there was, by the way, there was over a dozen witnesses to this event. And one of the reasons that I always found this case interesting or mysterious is because there's a timeline of this crash occurring. And some people just seen it on the ocean, on the surface of the ocean. Some people saw it in the sky coming down. So there's multiple witnesses from multiple viewing or vantage points. Some from an airplane, some from seeing it in the sky, some seeing it, some ship captains or people aboard ship out in the harbor seeing it. Some people on the shore of the harbor seeing it. So we've got multiple eyewitnesses, which is very corroborative of a real and true crash event happening. Something came down from the sky and into the ocean. I suppose the real question is, what was it that came down?
Royal Canadian Air Force. The article included descriptions of the object and crash as seen by witnesses, as well as the Air Force's search efforts and the Navy's underwater search. A spokesman with a special department of the Air Force in Ottawa, who recommended the Navy conduct an underwater search, was also quoted as saying the Air Force was very interested in the situation.
Okay, so the Air Force was very interested in what this object was, and also recommended that the Navy conduct an underwater search for what it was, since no debris field was found on the surface of the ocean or whatever. So the government was extremely interested in, and did in fact investigate this event very thoroughly. But not just the government, independent civilian researchers also would later research this event and interview all of the witnesses, etc.
We get hundreds of reports every week, but the Shag Harbour incident is one of the few where we may get something concrete on it. Navy divers were dispatched to the area to conduct a search 2 days after the incident. They searched the seafloor looking for an object or any debris, but nothing was found, according to the final report. The Chronicle Herald ran a story on October 9th titled "UFO Search Called Off," stating that the Navy had ended an intensive undersea search for any sign of the object. As to what was found, the Navy stated, not a trace, not a clue, not a bit of anything.
So after an extensive underwater search, they found nothing. They didn't find a craft. They didn't find debris from a craft. They didn't find, bodies, human or otherwise. They found not a trace of this object.
The Chronicle Herald article from October 7th also mentioned various UFO sightings that immediately preceded the incident. At around 10 p.m., several witnesses saw odd glowing objects flying over Halifax.
Yeah, and this is another interesting part of the story, because if we take this case in its totality, it is not a UFO sighting. It is multiple UFO sightings, both preceding the event and the main event here, the object which crashed into the harbor, and after the event. And some people have speculated that perhaps if there was some attempt by these other craft to assist the craft which crashed.
Objects were also sighted by the crew of the ship MV Nickerson. The vessel was off Sambro, Nova Scotia, and there were 4 hits on the radar prior to the crash.
Another interesting point, there is radar data. So this was a real object. This was not, I hate to use the term, this was not swamp gas. This was not a satellite. This was not somebody mistaking, the planet Venus for a UFO. This was a real and verifiable object that was confirmed by multiple radar hits.
On October 7th, Captain Leo Howard Mersey gave a statement to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. He stated that around 9 p.m. on October 4th, he noticed an object with 3 flashing red lights on or near the water. Radar indicated this object to be 16 miles away, and at the time the boat was 32 miles south of Sambro Light.
So they were within 16 miles of the actual craft and saw a great deal of red lights. It's also important to note that the descriptions of these eyewitnesses do not match like FAA lights. They do not match, required lights for sailing vessels or, boats. So, again, people have used that as an excuse to rule out that it was a boat, that it was a conventional, human aircraft.
He said the object disappeared around 11 p.m. and went up in the air with only one flashing red light. He could not see a physical shape or form of the object due to the distance. At the same time, there were 3 other objects on radar and about 6 miles from the first object. There were no lights on these 3 objects as they were only appearing on radar.
Yeah, so that's interesting. They could visually see the one object, but there was 3 more that were appearing on their radar screens, but they could not visually see because they did not have lights on
He
them.
mentions that at times the Navy practice in the area, and it is not unusual to see the Navy or aircraft dropping things into the water here. But he had never seen anything like that before. So what really happened the night of October 4th, 1967?
Yeah, and just to be clear, if it was Navy or a military exercise, the Navy aircraft would have the appropriate lighting that matches all other Navy aircraft. And this is not the case, according to eyewitness testimony.
There were around a dozen witnesses from that night, including RCMP officers and other credible witnesses that saw something. This is one of the very few UFO cases in the world that have received an official government investigation.
Yeah, so this is one of those cases where there were so many witnesses and it was such a startling event. We've got radar data, we've got people in boats seeing things, we've got police officers seeing things, people on the shore seeing things. The government was all but required to investigate, especially to determine whether, and some perhaps airplane went down. They quickly ruled that out.
With the mystery surrounding this incident and no real answers to what happened, there are many theories. It is rumored by some that a secret search at Shag Harbour, around 30 miles to the northeast, was conducted by a joint US-Canada search team of up to 7 ships, and that debris was found. Some say that nothing actually crashed that night, and that it was actually a USO, an unidentified submerged object that went below the surface where it sat for days and then was tracked heading south into the Gulf of Maine, where it vanished. Was this a cover-up of something unknown? Or was this nothing more than the military testing aircraft and other technologies in the area?
Yeah, and this is where it gets strange because there is some evidence that there was some sort of military recovery operation, and also some reports or evidence that an object was tracked under the sea by military, technology that is there to detect Soviet submarines or incursions. Some people are unaware of this, but all across the coasts of both the West Coast and the East Coast, I believe, there are sensors placed at the bottom of the ocean to find and detect submarine activity. And there are some claims associated with this case that this object was tracked by sonar traveling under the ocean after this crash event.
This did occur in the midst of the Cold War, and Soviet subs were a real possibility in these waters. During the Cold War, a research station in Shelburne had an important role in anti-submarine warfare as part of the secret sound surveillance system that identified and tracked Soviet submarines. The incident continues to fascinate locals and UFO researchers and enthusiasts from all around the world. The official conclusion is that nothing was found and that no known aircraft crashed on the night of October 4th. The incident still has no explanation and remains unsolved.
Yeah. So, and this is an enduring mystery. And to this day, the mystery has not been solved. What was it that crashed? What was it that went down? Well, we can shed some light on this. I think that the original news articles are very interesting. This event was a big event in the local area, and got a good deal of reporting. A headline front page story in the Halifax Chronicle Herald could be something concrete. So I'm going to share my screen once again, and we'll get into the news reporting. The spokesman who identified himself, this is the website's a little whacked, sorry. A spokesman for a special and little known Royal Canadian Air Force Department who was investigating unidentified flying objects said last night a series of bright lights which glided into the ocean off Shag Harbour, Shelbourne County, Wednesday night. The spokesman, who identified himself as Squadron Leader Bain, said his department was very interested in the matter. And this is a quote from him. "We get hundreds of reports every week," he said, "but the Shag Harbour incident is one of the few where we may get something concrete on it." Yes, because there was a belief that something went down and perhaps they could recover it from the ocean or the ocean floor. He went on to say the search will continue today. The 4-man diving team from RMCS, Royal Mounted Canadian Services, I think, Granby, will be augmented by 3 new divers from Halifax, and all 7 will search from dawn to dusk. If nothing is found, special metal detection equipment may be brought in, a spokesman said. So it looks like they had a 4-man diving team in the area where the object went down looking for whatever it was under the ocean. There's a part about a row of lights. At least a dozen persons reported seeing the row of lights descend into the water. But as yet, no trace of any debris has been found, either on the surface or on the bottom. The only clue may be again, we hear this, a wide patch of strange yellow foam sighted by vessels searching the area immediately after the object went down. Navy divers searched the area yesterday and found nothing, but will be back at it with reinforcements today. No ships or planes were reported in the area at the time of the sightings Wednesday. It was the third, but far most dramatic sighting of UFOs in Nova Scotian skies in the past 10 days. So there was commonly, that would be called a UFO flap. There was an actual UFO flap around this time, and this event was part of it. It is the third UFO sighting in the past 10 days of the main event here. Others were over the Armdale Rotary a week ago, Thursday, and in the Dartmouth the same night as the Shag Harbour sighting. So on the same night as this event, there was another sighting in a nearby town, Dartmouth. All armed forces efforts are being centered on the Shag Harbour incident, but as yet, spokesmen said they had no explanation for the sightings. They begin Wednesday at about 11 p.m. And here's a quote. "I was with Norm Smith and we were driving in Shag Harbour from Cape Island," said David Hendricks, 18. "When we got to the bare point, we saw a bright light in the sky, sort of reddish orange." Kendrick said 2 more lights appeared all in a row on the right decline of about 45 degrees. They came on in order, the lowest one first. They were pinpoints of light, not like flares, said Kendricks. Said he had never seen anything like them before. So, some skeptics and debunkers may say, well, red light in the sky, it could be a meteor. But apparently the lights came on in order, with the lowest one first. And, that would tend to rule out that these could have been meteors coming down. He judged them to be 2 or 3 miles away in the southwest. They passed out of sight when he drove into a grove of trees. Within minutes of the sighting, Lauren Wiggins, 19, and 4 other young people also made a sighting from a car, but a few miles away at Shag Harbour. So there were 4 lights. Wiggins said he saw 4 lights in a row over Woods Harbor and thought they were yellow and white in color. As he and his friends watched the row of lights, had been level, tilted at a 45-degree angle, and started to descend into the ocean on a gradual glide. Many of the people described that these objects did not crash into the ocean, but glided gracefully into the ocean. The article goes on to state, like Kendricks, he noticed the lights going on and off in order and said this happened several times before it reached water level. He said he heard nothing when they made contact and estimated 1.5 miles from the offshore and due south. One friend, however, reported a whistling, hissing noise. They stopped the car to look and saw a single white light bobbing offshore. Wiggins called the RCMP, so he called the police. After it hit the water, we were called to the scene, said Ron O'Brien of the Barrington RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. I saw a light floating on the water about a half-mile offshore. It was being carried out to sea by the tide and disappeared before we could get a boat out to it. O'Brien said he and 2 other RCMP officers were on the scene within 20 minutes. So we've got police right on the scene of the crash or the gliding down within 20 minutes of the report, the first calls. Many of the other reports of the row of lights gliding into the water that night came in that day, RCMP says. All were in the same time in the same area. All known possibilities have been checked out. A Navy spokesman says there is no security involved on their part because the Department of National Defense reported nothing missing from aircraft or ships. So we can generally rule out conventional or civilian aircraft or ships. And apparently the Navy is also ruling out that these were military aircraft or ships. No planes were reported operating in the area at the time, and a spokesperson said it was unlikely anything fell from an aircraft because of the gliding pattern described by most witnesses. The Barrington Passage radar station reported no sightings at the time, the Navy said. The RCMP immediately called out Canadian Coast Guard Lifeboat 101 from Clark's Harbor, and 8 local fishing vessels joined the search almost immediately. So they had 9 ships looking for this object that had glided into the ocean. Within an hour, they were in the area, pinpointed by several sightings. Nothing was found except an extremely large patch of bubbling water and foam. Captain Bradford Shand, Shag Harbour, said he went through the strange foam at least 80 feet wide. It was yellowish in color, and said that while he passed through the area every day while fishing, he had never seen anything like it before. So these are fishermen. If it's common for there to be a mile-wide patch of, a wide patch of foam, he would have seen something like that before. He commented that he had not seen anything like that before. So whatever this foam was, it wasn't a common occurrence on the harbor. Navy divers from HMCS Granby began investigations Friday at noon. A search to dusk in water ranging from 30 to 65 feet revealed nothing. 3 more men will join the 4-man team and search today. So they had 7 divers down there looking for whatever it was that went down. One source in the area reported fishermen very anxious to have the matter cleared up. They must pass through the spot each day on their way to the fishing grounds and are very weary of making the trip. An armed forces spokesman in Halifax said it was not known when a solution for the mystery could be found. Of the other 2 UFO sightings, one came Wednesday about an hour earlier than the Shag Harbour incident. So we've got multiple UFO sightings in the area. A woman on her way home from work saw a bright round object in the sky moving from the Halifax-Dartmouth ferry landing to Imperial north to south. She described it as bright, more vivid than a star, and with an orange hue like halo around the circumference. She looked at it when she got home through binoculars and saw it was not a star. Also, the orange hue was plainly visible. She didn't think it was a flying saucer. She assumed it was a satellite. The CFB Shearwater Control Tower said that their radar was not being watched at the time, estimated to be between 9 and 10 p.m. So, and here we see no trace. This is another article. UFO search was then called off. An armed forces spokesman said the decision to terminate the search was made after a 7-man Navy diving team had spent 3 days scouring the bottom of the Shag Harbour without finding any trace of the UFO. The area searched, pinpointed as the spot where 60-foot-long row of lights disappeared, was thoroughly covered, the spokesman said. The object was seen by at least 12 or 13 local residents, including an RCMP corporal. All tide conditions and visibility were favorable for the hunt conducted by divers in teams of 2. Even areas where the tide might have taken a buoyant object were checked out. However, the divers were reported to be completely exhausted by the ordeal of 3 straight days in the water. Maritime Command said there seemed to be no use in pressing them further. The search started Friday, prompted by the mysterious sighting Wednesday night, shortly after 11 p.m. Local residents reported seeing a row of lights, apparently on the circumference of the object about 60 feet across, glide out of the dark into the ocean about a half a mile offshore. Several reported seeing a tall white light bobbing on the spot for some time afterwards, as did RCMP, called in to investigate. By the time the search teams reached the spot, the light was gone, and the only thing found, and we keep coming back to this, was a large patch of strange yellow foam or froth. In calling off the search last night, the Armed Forces spokesman admitted that neither command headquarters nor the diving parties ever had any idea what it was that they were searching for. So this is why one of the reasons this case is interesting to me. Talk about a mystery. Something went down in the ocean. Did it go down in the ocean and then travel underwater away from the area? Because we've got 7 divers doing 3 days of searching the entire underwater area where this object went down, and apparently they found nothing. This is one of the reasons why I think this is a genuine mystery, because listen, if a helicopter crashes into the ocean and you send divers to the general area where the helicopter crashed, or an airplane crashes, or a ship goes down, you're going to find something. You're going to find debris. You're going to find some traces of it. And they even sort of plotted the tides, because if you're in the ocean, there's ocean tides that can carry things a certain distance, I'm assuming. They checked those areas as well, exhausting 7 divers, experienced divers, and they found nothing. So it gets very interesting. And then besides all of the various, there's a great deal of news coverage, and but no resolution really to the actual sighting. We have a second UFO reported seen in Shelburne. There was a second UFO sighting within a week in the Shelburne area. 10 p.m. Wednesday night, October 11th, this man and his wife Lauren, daughter Luella, and his brother Havelock Cameron and his wife Brenda noticed 6 bright red lights measuring from the end light to end about 55 to 60 feet. So 10 days after, or excuse me, 6 days after this initial sighting, there's another sighting of what many claim is the same or similar craft. The descriptions are very, very similar. Mr. Cameron said the string of lights appeared to be 3/4 of a mile off the shore and in a stationary position. He reported the lights stayed in position for 7 or 8 minutes and then disappeared for the moment. The lights then reappeared. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot I wasn't sharing the screen. Let me go back to that. And by the way, all of these articles are in the description of our video. The lights then reappeared, only this time at what seemed to be a 35-degree angle and with only 4 lights showing. Mr. Cameron said the lights began to descend towards the horizon, slowly changing in color from red to yellow and then to an orange hue. He reported that the lights moved in the direction of Tusket Island and disappeared. This sighting lasted for what Mr. Cameron estimated to be 15 minutes. An hour later, Mr. Cameron said that he spotted the lights again. This time they appeared as a string of yellow lights moving at a speed, in Mr. Cameron's words, faster than any plane. They vanished after moving in a southwesterly to northeasterly direction. He said that the combined time of all 3 sightings was nearly 25 minutes. So here we've got an extremely long sighting. This wasn't like a flashing glimpse of something. They watched this object for 25 minutes. Mr. Cameron informed Barrington Detachment of RCMP of the sighting. The radar station at Bacaro was informed of the sighting, but when contacted last night, officials had no comment. Barrington RCMP, who interviewed the people who claimed to have made the sighting, reported that they appeared to be sincere and sober. Asked what he thought of the sightings, Mr. Cameron replied, "I just don't know. We are all puzzled. The next time I see it, though, I'm going to take a shot at it." Mr. Cameron also said that the television reception at his house seemed to be affected by the lights. The screen had white line through it, and the picture was all jiggly, he said. And then here we have another article about scientists digging into this. And this is where it gets even more interesting, because some Canadian scientists essentially are claimed at the time, directly after the sighting, that this wasn't aliens. This was some strange technology, human-derived technology, but secret projects. Very, very interesting. Professor McNeil, a member of the National Research Council, thinks the mystery UFOs may be prototype super aircraft under test. From the evidence reports of the two recent Shelburne County sightings, they could have the capability to travel by air, sea, and beneath the sea, he said. So here we get into the idea of a transmedium craft, some sort of craft that can travel by air, sea, and beneath the sea. I feel these are real things, said Professor McNeil. I have had a number of reports over the past couple of years. It seems to me that there's a matter of security involved here. I know nothing for sure, but from what I have heard and seen, it seems to be they might be experimental craft of some kind. Professor McNeil said he thought probable the craft were North American rather than Canadian. So he's basically saying this was the United States with some secret weapons technology or aircraft technology. He went on to say such versatile craft could well be within the grasp of leading nations, he said. If they are, then it is right they should be kept strictly secret. After all, they are in a competition for survival. Professor McNeil, a leading geologist, is a member of the National Research Council's Meteorite Committee, which studies UFO reports. Many of the other experts he meets and works with also believe secret military trials may be the explanation for some of them, he said. Professor Tennyson is a chairman for a new technical committee formed in Toronto University's Institute of Aerospace Studies. The purpose of the committee is to investigate what Professor Tennyson prefers to call unidentified atmospheric phenomenon. Wow, look at that. UAP. This was in 1967. Someone is using the term UAP. Of course, they're giving it a different name. It's not anomalous phenomenon. It's atmospheric phenomenon. So nothing new under the sun. Here we see a reference to the term UAP used in 1967. And then there's follow reports. It is followed by the Shelburne reports would seriously consider sending a scientist down to Nova Scotia to analyze any positive evidence. Professor Tennyson said it was very conceivable the mystery light may be a new supercraft under test. I wouldn't be surprised, but at the same time, I wouldn't dismiss the possibility of the U.S. being ignorant of it too. He went on to say, but I do believe in unidentified atmospheric phenomenon, whether it happens to be an extraterrestrial vehicle, a military machine, or what. I think we should try to find out. Professor Tennyson supported the military craft theory in saying the large patch of yellowish foam seen floating just offshore after the Wednesday, October 4th sighting could be similar to that used as a marker by planes in trouble or returning astronauts. He also spoke of the huge United States Norfolk Naval Base in Virginia as a possible launching point. Professor Tennyson said, whatever their source, the Shelburne UFOs are certainly among the most interesting reports this year. They have a high credibility rating, he said. This is because they have been observed by several people, including an RCMP officer, for long periods of time. Oh, I know why this is wacky. No, it's still wacky at any size. So I apologize. Just bad formatting of the website. Yeah, I apologize. So there are some letters to the editor Tough for skeptics. The unidentified Department of Defense spokesperson, who said he and his colleagues were keeping an open mind about the UFO sightings off Shelburne, described the situation perfectly. What other attitude can be taken? Who is to say that space people aren't I don't know that word, gambling off of our, not gambling, gamboling off our coasts? Who is there who will contend with the possibility that the UFO may be experimental land, sea, air machines belonging to the United States, as some scientists suggest? Indeed, perhaps the most debatable theory is that the UFOs are products of the human imagination or of natural phenomenon. In the first place, numbers of people have described similar objects on at least 2 occasions. They agreed upon such essentials as lights, length of the object or objects, and its speed. In the second, there was some physical evidence, that yellowish foam discovered by researchers, which gives yet more credibility to the sightings. Imagination and or natural phenomenon seem to be the weakest, not strongest of explanations. It has been a tough week for skeptics. So yeah, this is one of those cases that skeptics, it's very difficult to just, give these away. Here, we'll read one more letter to the editor. Nothing new. Sir, the sighting of strange unidentified flying objects in the skies over Nova Scotia is nothing new. Why every day is no one looking to the sky? He will see something which he is unable to identify. It could be a high-flying jet or one of the many man-made space satellites which can be seen at certain times. If one has to go and check on every report that a UFO was sighted, the Department of National Defense would use up an awful lot of taxpayers' monies in Cape Breton alone, because there is not a week that goes by that someone does not report to one of the local radio talkback programs that he saw or heard some strange things flying or hovering about. Recently, a group of students in England left some little spaceships which they built in vocational school they attended at some shopping centers, and the police were baffled because a beeping sound came from them. The students later acknowledged the prank. However, the Shag Harbour incident is reported that a lady saw an object flying over the Halifax area towards the direction of Shag Harbour, and a number of responsible people stated they saw an object fly overhead and land in the water approximately 1/2 mile from shore. Nevertheless, the boats which went out to the crash site were unable to locate the object, reporting, however, that the water contained a large patch of yellow foam. If you look into this case, you're going to hear about this yellow foam a lot. Why was not a suitable sample of the water containing the yellow color taken and suitable tests made to determine what chemical change had taken place? If it was taken, when will a report be forthcoming? So interesting. And by the way, I'm aware that I believe the History Channel did an episode. There was an episode of UFO Hunters where they sent divers down to this location again to see if they could find anything. And I don't recall, but I'm fairly certain that no, they did not see anything. They did not see anything when they went and dove again years later. So no trace of it, but there are more reports of strange occurrences. And let me get to my other resources here. Oh, here they go. So besides all of the news coverage, there are a great deal of government documents. And by the way, I've shared this great website and resource for anybody who we have a main summary of what happened, pre-crash UFOs, the crash, searches, cover-up and documents, 2 UFOs, news articles, document copies. And we'll go back to the main summary. So we've been over the general gist of what happened, but there is more to this. Oh, wait a minute. No, sorry. Let's go back here. We'll go to the yeah, so there is some cover stories apparently involving what really happened that night. And I found this part of the mystery intensely interesting. I'm always curious when some unexplained event happens, when government agencies or anybody, when there's some kind of story to explain it away. Apparently, a person called Chris Stiles also found evidence of some cover stories to hide what really happened. One such story appeared in the Shelburne Coast Guard, a weekly newspaper, on October 12, 1967. The headline read, U.S. barge at Shelburne with atomic furnaces. The story claimed that a barge was carrying 2 huge atomic furnaces from Philadelphia to Rochester, New York, and had to put into Shelburne for repairs on October 6th after springing a leak and taking on water. A number of things about this story made Stiles and co-founder Don Ledger suspicious. First, the amazing coincidence of the timing. Second, the strange atomic furnaces seemed contrived and not believable. Finally, the story claimed repairs were made quickly by divers overnight and the barge pumped dry in only 17 hours, which seems much too quick to be believable from Stiles' maritime experiences. A photo of the barge with caption also appeared in the Halifax Chronicle Herald on October 13th, and a caption read, "An atomic furnace to be used as a project near Rochester, New York, made an unexpected arrival in Shelburne." And see, this is what I don't understand. If it's a cover story, maybe there was lights on the ship and the ship came into the port. It's very strange. Stiles and Ledger suspected the purpose of the barge would be for the recovery of the object from the seafloor bed. So here we have a conspiracy theory that the barge was actually there to recover the UFO, something that couldn't be placed on a smaller recovery ship like a destroyer. Further, a barge in the harbor is quite ordinary and unlikely to draw attention. A few months later, Terry, the ELINT specialist who had been dropping sonar buoys by air, independently confirmed their suspicions. When asked if he had seen any ships while flying over the area near Government Point, he mentioned seeing not only multiple ships anchored there, but a barge as well, towed up in a hurry from Norfolk, Virginia, to put the object on when they lifted it up. That's what people are alleging. Another seeming cover story came from contacting David Bentley, a former reporter from Halifax Chronicle Herald. The newspaper had initially given serious coverage to the story, but then Bentley was given charge of the story, and the reporting quickly gave way to debunking, which is Bentley's front page story on October 13th, Shelburne UFO, secret war machine from U.S. scientists. The stories present pure speculation. So we've been through that story. That was put forth as a cover story. It's interesting. So there's multiple explanations that people believe are cover stories. And apparently, this person was replaced. He was replaced at the newspaper, who went to obscene lengths to find UFO experts who were not only contradicted but mocked the public assumption that this was a flying saucer story. Also notable is the fact that the day I was told I was off the story, Bentley came to me and apologized for what he was about to do. Meaning, as I see it, he had to advance on the orders of what to do. And if that wasn't enough, the managing editor, Harold Shea, who directed my story to be a headline on page 1, was immediately given an unscheduled vacation because rumor had it that management thought he needed a rest. Either that or someone told them to put this man away for a while where he could do no more damage. So there's claims that there was a cover-up even at the local newspaper to put out a cover story that this wasn't aliens or UFOs. This was a top secret U.S. government project. Great. And then there's some missing documents. During this investigation, Stiles encountered several suspicious instances of missing government records. In one case, he went to the Canadian National Archives in Ottawa and experienced 3 days of frustrating delays in obtaining a file he had previously been promised, titled Target Detection Search Flying Saucers General 1950 to 67. When he finally got to view it, he was shocked to discover it contained only 24 documents, none having to do with UFOs, even though it was supposedly a UFO file. More telling, one sheet of paper had a notation that this file group had documents removed only a few months before. So there's this is where the story gets more interesting, because we've got an unknown object that came down. We've got a government investigation into what actually happened, and now we have claims of a government cover-up, claims that there were cover stories put out to cover the story. it gets very, very suspicious. And so there are a great deal of documents that cover this case, and we can, I'll show you some of those, but yeah, so there's a UFO report advising that a UFO, also referred to as a dark object, had impacted in Shag Harbour. Advises all other possibilities, aircraft or flares are excluded. And then there is a priority message from Squadron Leader Bain of UFO Desk Request Investigation and Underwater Search, ASAP. That's what we discussed previously. The Squadron Leader Bain requested an underwater search immediately. Then there's a priority telex. Fleet Diving Unit Atlantic instructs the Coast Guard station at Shelburne to provide a cutter and divers for the search and recovery effort. Note Bain mentioned in handwriting at the top. He wrote the word UFO in handwriting and underlined UFO 3 times. Then there's a memo from Colonel T.T. Turner, Director of Operations, to S.L. Bain, UFO report, and it summarizes the incident with them ruling out conventional crash object and says the Coast Guard cutter and divers currently investigating on site. There's a DND memo, a quick summary of the incident from the National Canadian Archives. Halifax RCMP, that's the local police, for Captain Leo Mercy. There's a radar and visual sighting of unknown lights at the sea near Halifax, forwarded to RCMP detachment at Barrington Passage near Shag Harbour. And here's one of those documents. So all of the documents are still available. This is one of the most documented. Here we see that he wrote the word UFO and underlined it 3 times. And he is asking for a diving officer and 3 men to conduct an investigation of object reported by RCMP in the vicinity of, and then he gives the coordinates for where the search should occur. Object approximately 300 yards offshore. So they kind of did their due diligence here, documenting everything. And this is one of the most well-documented cases. And here's the RCMP, Royal Mounted Canadian Police report. About 9 p.m. on the 4th of October, I noticed an object with 3 flashing red lights. This is the report from the RCMP officer, who was also a witness to the primary event. And this is from Barrington Passage. Again, another report of the incident, This is a very, very well documented case. And I invite you, if you are interested, to peruse all of these documents. 1 second here. They are in the description of the video. So we're going to take some questions and comments from the live chat. But before I do that, I have forgotten to tweet out that we are live. Good time to do that when the presentation is all but over or nearly over. But I noticed that several people, including Teddy May and Arden Paranormal, have tweeted it for me. I'll just retweet theirs and tweet my own. Yeah, and what is it called now if it's X? Or you're not tweeting anymore, you're Xing. And someone, by the way, has corrected me because I still use the term UFO Twitter in some of my posts. People are still looking at that hashtag, even though it's X, not Twitter any longer. I have copied the, I'm going to copy the invitation to join the show, and perhaps we can have a discussion about this. I had just a few more things to share, but before I do that, let me get over to our Discord server. I'm going to begin the invitation to the panel by placing the invitation into the Discord server. 1 second. I'm just going to put invitation to join the panel. So if you're a member of our Discord, you get first dibs. That's probably why you should join our Discord server. And if you enjoy these chats with like-minded people about these strange and esoteric topics, you'll likely enjoy our Discord server. And one of our kind and generous chat room moderators will certainly share that with you so that you too can join. We've got all different areas, general area, UFOs and the phenomenon, UFO discussion area, new show ideas, stories and news, cryptozoology. There's a section on World War III. So, hey, if you're a prepper, grifters by request. There's a section for Stephen Greer, Bob Lazar, file this under and more. There's a hoax headquarters for people who like to discuss different hoaxes and more. You are welcome in our Discord server. We'll take a moment to recognize a kind and generous person in our live chat. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support for two things, the Depster. One, for being a member, and two, for a kind and generous $5 super chat saying praise the cash. Yeah, absolutely. Praise the cash, friends, and we appreciate you. So we are gonna I'm gonna continue in the presentation. I have a few more things to share because there are other reports where things get really, really even stranger. And those reports involve the fact that there are claims that this object went under the ocean and then traveled under the ocean and was tracked. So I have something here to share about that. One moment. All right. Yeah, so, and we mentioned Chris Stiles. I should mention that he was a UFO investigator for MUFON. And despite what I think about MUFON, I think that this person, Christopher Stiles, did an excellent job on this situation. All right, so we've covered most of this, but you should also know that there is a Shag Harbour UFO Incident Society and a Shag Harbour Mysteries of Canada site. There's a Shag Harbour UFO Expo at times. So interesting that there's like a whole museum dedicated to this, which this is kind of an extraordinary event. After all, it could have been an airplane. I believe that some scientists have chimed in and claimed that it couldn't have been meteors. To me, one of the best explanations until I heard that was that it was meteors, because if 3 or 4 meteors came crashing down into the ocean, but then it doesn't really match, because if meteors came crashing down into the ocean, they wouldn't hover on the surface of the water for some time. They would instantly, be recognized. They would just go under the ocean. I thought a meteor might really explain why they didn't find anything, because if it burned up as it hit the water, I mean, what are you going to find? A little rock down on the ocean floor? It wouldn't stand out as being anything out of the ordinary. You would just think it was a rock, I would think. I mean, depending on the size and shape of the meteor. So it gets stranger, though. If you believe Wikipedia, there is various reports, or not Wikipedia, but if you believe some of the reports, there is various reports of a secret mission that took place between the United States and the Canadian authorities. And somehow the claims are that they recovered something. So, but these are very, these are kind of like strange to track down. Like, who is the sources? Who said this? Where did this information about a strange search come from? Because there's the official public search, and we have a great deal of information and documentation. But then there's a secondary search that is reported to be a secret military search at Government Point and Shelbourne Harbor. And again, this is brought to light by this Christopher Stiles, who investigated the case. 1 second, let me make sure I got the right one here. I think I do. Yeah, so besides the primary public search that we've just been talking about, according to Christopher Stiles, who's a MUFON investigator, UFO investigator, mostly by chance, also uncovered evidence of a highly secretive search by U.S. and Canadian military at Shelbourne Harbor near Government Point, about 30 miles northeast of Shag Harbour. Earl, a neighbor of a friend of Stiles, had been stationed in 1970 at the Canadian Forces Station Barrington on Baccaro Point, the site of the radar station. He was a weapons technician with top secret clearance. And by the way, I don't want to sound like I was doubting this information, but I'd like to see more documents. So he was a weapons tech with a top secret clearance specializing in missile recognition. Following a personal UFO sighting, balls of light rising from the ocean on Cape Stable Island, 7 miles west of Baccaro radar station, he broached the subject with his commander, Colonel Rushton, also including the Shag Harbour incident. According to Earl, so this is kind of a secondhand account. According to Earl, Rushton told him NORAD had tracked the Shag Harbour object from the moment it entered the Earth's atmosphere. Like I said, it gets crazier and crazier. After a half orbit over Siberia to the east coast of Canada and the Shag Harbour area, the military also knew the object had submerged, proceeded out to sea, headed northeast up the coast around Cape Stable Island, and come to rest off the mouth of Shelbourne Harbor over a magnetic anomaly detection grid feeding into the super secret sub-detection base at Shelbourne. So there was a secret sub-detection base at Shelbourne that's there to, they have this magnetic sensor system that's there to detect submarines, Soviet submarines. It's the height of the Cold War. 6 or 7 Canadian and American ships, according to this person, were anchored over the object and another object that had joined it, possibly to assist the first. Hydrophones were used to study them, and many photographs were taken. The flotilla left after 7 days, hastily dispatched to challenge a Russian sub. In the spring of 1994, Stiles also ran into an old friend who had been involved. Jim had been in the Canadian Air Force and an expert in aircraft identification. He and a team were brought out to the flotilla and told they were camped over an intruding Russian sub. This story immediately aroused Jim's suspicions. Why would an Air Force team be brought in to ID submarine parts? Furthermore, they were kept below deck at times. The divers were constantly being reminded not to talk, including by some paranoid American officers. Nonetheless, one diver in particular, Harry, started shooting his mouth off after a few drinks. Harry would say, "It was no sub down there, and whatever it was and wherever it was from, it certainly wasn't from Moscow." Just like Earl, Jim said the flotilla was there for a week. So we've got 2 corroborating witnesses saying that there was a flotilla of military vehicles, ships in the area trying to recover this object or camped over where the object went down, then abruptly left at full steam to the ocean seas. Stiles was already well aware of the diver Harry, having spoken to him before in 1993. In fact, Harry was the first witness to tip off Stiles to the Shelbourne Harbor search. Harry had been tracked down through the assistance of an acquaintance of his father's, an instructor with the Fleet Diving Unit, Guy Fenn. Fenn was able to get the names of the divers involved. 1 was dying, 2 refused to talk, but Harry was initially much more cooperative. Before he stopped talking, Harry, in a personal interview, this is one of the divers that went looking for this thing, told Stiles and friend Bob McDonald, assisting Stiles, that the ships were there for over a week. They had located the object using sonar and soundings. The divers have gone down in pairs and brought up debris, including big chunks of some kind of solid foam-like material. Some of it was decomposing while they were bringing it up. Harry also reluctantly told him that there was no doubt that the object wasn't anything from here. So we do have multiple reports of people being involved in some kind of recovery effort and some sort of very strange debris being brought up from the ocean floor. This article goes on to state, in the last phone conversation, Harry refused to talk further and told Stiles he would never get the full Shelburne story. When Stiles suggested that maybe what he saw was wrongly identified as a UFO, Harry angrily responded, "I don't know what it was down there, and I don't know where it came from, but it didn't come from this planet." Wow. And this is from a book by Harry Stiles. We're going to share that with you in case you want to learn more. Some lesser witnesses also knew of something happening in the Shelburne area. Another military witness was Terry, a retired Air Force officer who was an ELINT, Electronics Intelligence Specialist, attached to the 405 Squadron out of RCAF Greenwood, Nova Scotia. He was receiving specialized training when he was suddenly ordered to fly special missions from Maine to Shelburne, dropping sonar buoys. The missions lasted 7 days, then suddenly stopped. Once the crews were joking with one another, they were harshly ordered not to discuss dropping the sonar equipment with anyone and to keep their mouths shut. Terry said he had never seen missions handled in such a heavy-handed manner, even though they routinely intercepted Russian subs. It was highly unusual for the Canadian Air Force and the Air Force of the American Navy to interact as they did, the regular conventions concerning American-Canadian border incursions being set aside. Terry's wife happened to be live in Shelburne at the time of the Shag Harbour incident and remembered it well. Her father was involved with the armed forces, and she mentioned they had quarantined Shelburne base and blocked the road to Government Point. So why would they suddenly quarantine an entire military base? That, to me, is a compelling piece of evidence, because if you've got some sort of anything, if you've got any kind of object that you think may be extraterrestrial in nature, you know, look, when they sent men to the moon, they made them sit in quarantine for I don't know how many days, I don't recall, but there's a real danger of pathogens or unknown bacteria or whatever. So I think that protocol would suggest that you quarantine people that may have been exposed to this stuff. And here we have reports of a quarantine. Another witness who Stiles met by chance told a similar story. As a boy, he remembered the military blocking the road to Government Point, letting only locals through. From Government Point, one could look over a 2-mile stretch of water where the flotilla of ships would have been anchored. Not all military witnesses claimed to know something. Chris Stiles also interviewed Squadron Leader Major William Bain, Chief of the Royal Canadian Air Force and Air Desk in Ottawa. Back then, the Air Desk was a clearinghouse for UFO reports in the federal government. Bain's name was on several of the documents that Stiles had uncovered. Bain was aware of the recovery effort at Shag Harbour, but claimed no knowledge of the Shelburne recovery off Government Point. Bain admitted that Stiles' evidence could make someone justifiably suspicious. He had it that any recovery could have been coordinated and perhaps covered up by the Navy and NORAD. A very uncooperative military witness was Major Victor Eldridge. In October 1967, he was the base administrative officer at Baccarat, a NORAD radar facility near Shelburne. Eldridge claimed to have zero knowledge or memory of the Shag Harbour crash. Stiles reminded him that Baccarat base would have been one of the staging areas for the publicized recovery effort at Shag Harbour, so he must have known quite a bit. Eldridge said that he would like to help but couldn't. Then he tried to ridicule Stiles' efforts, suggesting there wasn't anything of substance. To this, Stiles retorted that was a strong opinion for someone claiming to have no memory or knowledge of the events. So sort of the base commander, I don't remember any of that. Now, this will be the last part of this that we add to the mystery, because this is a crazy part of the story. And this one is sort of a verified, seems to be a credible witness to the story. And this is the lighthouse keeper's strange story. As if this story already wasn't strange enough, we have unidentified craft that went down, floated on the ocean surface for a while, and apparently went under the ocean. We've got radar data. These were real objects. We can rule out they weren't aircraft, they weren't ships. We don't know what they were. We've got reports of a secondary recovery effort and cover-up by a joint military between the United States and Canada. Now we add this layer, and the crazy gets crazier. And this is the lighthouse keeper. There's a lighthouse keeper nearby. The man on duty, it was called the Cape Roseway Lighthouse. And I'm going to show you that in a moment. The Cape Roseway Lighthouse. So the man on duty, the lighthouse keeper, on October 4th, 1967, was finally located. The lighthouse was only 2.5 miles across the water of Shelburne Harbor from the sub-tracking base at Government Point, and would have an excellent vantage point of the reported recovery area there. Barry Crawwell, however, didn't remember seeing any ships, perhaps because of the common low-lying fog there. However, on the night of October 4th, just before midnight, or only about half an hour after the crash at Shag Harbour, something very strange did happen. Walking to the lighthouse with the keeper he was about to relieve, Brenton Reynolds, he saw 3 flares suddenly appear, lighting up the area. Coming ashore in some distress was a rubber Zodiac boat, which would be like a big inflatable boat like the military use. They found some very frightened men dressed in dark military garb. They spoke with British accents. The men were soaked, and their leader explained this was a mock commando raid. They were to secure the lighthouse, hold the island, and control the lighthouse operations and radio traffic. The man claimed that they had come from a submarine. For the next 2 or 3 days, the commandos were supplied from the air by helicopters. A small plane circulated over the area constantly for several days. Crowell thought the men were not real commandos since they seemed so poorly trained. He guessed maybe they were part of some NATO exercise. So we've got an awful lot of military involvement in these events. Stiles did locate records showing that Canada had purchased 3 subs from the UK. The first one was to arrive in Halifax on October 4th or 5th, but it was diverted to Shelburne Harbor instead, with the exception of 3 Canadians. The crew was British. The whole exercise seemed bizarre, but the coincidence of the timing with the Shag Harbour crash seemed remarkable, leading the authors to speculate there might be a connection, perhaps the badly trained commandos going to shore to look for survivors. So, very strange situation. Why are there, so we've got, and by the way, we've got 3 major nations involved in this event, apparently. We've got the United States government, allegedly part of some recovery effort. Of course, we have the Canadian Mounted Police, they would be the local police to the area. And we've got Canadian Navy divers and aircraft, so many involved. There's claims that NORAD tracked this object, that it came out of space. I'm going to say that one more time. There is claims, at least, allegedly, one of the people interviewed by this researcher claimed that NORAD tracked these objects coming out of space, flying over Siberia, and finding this area where the event occurred. And now we've got the English government somehow involved. This is just bizarre. So, along with all these strange happenings, apparently there is a military exercise going on, and people are coming off of a submarine in an inflatable boat and doing a mock exercise to take over the area of this lighthouse. It's bizarre. This may qualify. I don't know if you would call this high strangeness. Normally that applies to paranormal events, but in this situation, this is just so bizarre. This is just absolutely so bizarre. And of course, there is these rumors or claims that the object it floated on the water, it went under the water, and then allegedly it was tracked by sonar traveling under the ocean for a good distance and then disappearing into the open oceans. This is one of the mysterious cases. this is not one that can be easily just tossed aside as oh, it was flares, or it was this, or it was that. This one's a weird one. And this is one of those that, oh, by the way, I'm going to go over to the live chat. I did put the invitation to join the panel. Maybe we're not having one tonight, but I'm willing to do that. I'm going to put the invitation to join the panel here into the live chat. 1 second, and I will pin it. All right, so I've put it in the live chat. The link to join the show, to join the panel, will be in the live chat on YouTube. We ask that if you join the panel, you be respectful to other panel guests. I want to make sure that I repeat that all of the resources that we used to share with you tonight are in the description of the video, as well as a few things that we just didn't share because we're just going to kind of repeat things. And yes, the Debster is mentioning Into the Abyss. Yeah, Into the Abyss. I thought of that movie where the extraterrestrials are actually like made of water, right? Is that Into the Abyss or The Abyss? So I've added the invitation to join the show. I'm willing. I think it would be a good idea if we have a panel, and if we have a panel and discuss what does everybody think? Was this military top secret technology that went down, and that's why perhaps, I mean, that's one of the possibilities. We can discuss the possibilities of what it is that happened. But first, I think, certainly the Shag Harbour incident has left an enduring mark on popular culture. Because after all, there are books, there are documentaries, and countless discussions. This particular case has kind of become a symbol of the unexplained. One of those cases that fuels what I think is a well-expected public fascination with UFOs, and of course, the possibility that aliens may be visiting us. After all, and by the way, everybody knows I hate when people can't explain something. I hate it when they go, must be aliens, but I can't explain this one. There was several investigations into this, including the Canadian government's, I think it's Project Magnet, that investigated UFOs. There's independent research from many different independent researchers, investigators, and organizations have examined the case, and they've offered various hypotheses about what happened. But so far, we've got no definitive answers. So what we get to is some possible explanations. The first, of course, and the most exciting to most people would be the extraterrestrial hypothesis. And yes, it's true. Some people believe that this incident was caused by an extraterrestrial craft, given the lack of conventional explanations and the sudden disappearance of the object. After all, if it was a conventional airplane that went down, they would have found something. They would have found a wing, whatever. And I'm one to think that they would have found some debris at least, or they would have found some sign of the aircraft. And I'm not sure in 1967 if they had like tracking. No, they wouldn't have had GPS. So I was thinking they would find a black box or some, something there. And Dawn Richardson is here and says military. 1 second. I'm just going to write this. The link to join the show is in the description of the video. Maybe I should have put that out earlier, and I apologize for not doing so. Or we can save the panel for another topic or show. Dawn Richardson says military likely. And yes, my next possible explanation is military involvement, because certainly there are speculations that the object may have been a classified military experiment or some sort of crashed top secret military aircraft. And then, of course, we get into conspiracy theories, because, of course, this Shag Harbour incident has also attracted its share of conspiracy theories. People are suggesting there's government cover-up. People are suggesting it's secret experiments. And, I think some of these theories are possible, perhaps even likely. There's really no solid evidence of these type of conspiracies. So they should probably be approached with skepticism. And then, of course, this case has had a real enduring legacy, because this is one of those enduring mysteries. Many different people have investigated this case, including this Christopher Stiles. By the way, just to be fair, because we did share a lot of his material, I'm going to see if his book is still available. I think it's available on Amazon. I had this book at one time. I don't get it just by his name. Well, I see a video for the Shag Harbour UFO incident that you can get on Prime Video. It's free if you have Amazon Prime, but let me Google his name once more and see if we can't find that. I apologize for not having it sooner. Yeah, so there's a book by, it's called Impact to Contact, the Shag Harbour Incident. And I did find it. I don't know why it wouldn't come up under his name, but I will share my screen so we can see that. And this is one of the definitive books from one of the investigators about the Shag Harbour incident. The Shag Harbour incident was an international Cold War event that has secured its place in history. This book is a highly documented, enthralling, true adventure which represents the culmination of 20 years of comprehensive investigation into the case. So isn't it interesting? These guys spent 20 years looking into this mystery, right? And the tantalizing part is that we are no closer to any explanation. Like real-life equivalents of Holmes and Watson, Chris Stiles and Graham Sims dig deeply and eagerly into a mystery of crashed UFO proportions that even eclipses Roswell. Packed to the brim with accounts of credible witnesses, military files, human alien encounters, that's new, I haven't heard that one before, and suspiciously missing official documents, Impact to Contact is an excellent in-depth study of a ufological classic. And that comes from Nick Redfern. Impact to Contact includes UFO policy documents never before released to the public, secret Royal Canadian Mounted Police X-Files, links between the folklore of Nova Scotia, modern UFO activity, and cutting-edge scientific research. Impact to Contact introduces key witnesses, the head of the Air Force Desk, the little-known branch of the Canadian Forces responsible for on-site military UFO investigations, the Jesuit astronomer priest who secretly investigated UFOs for the authorities. That's an interesting part of this story. Somehow, the Canadian authorities had a Jesuit astronomer priest who was secretly secretly investigating UFO cases for them. That's bizarre, very strange. And parapsychologist who headed the Shag Harbour search effort. Witnesses to alien beings in the area during the incident. That's new, and that's troubling to me because that seems to be sort of a tacked on new. I have never heard that there was witnesses to alien beings in the area during the incident. RCMP officers and commanding officers of the Canada-US NORAD military bases involved in the case, the D&D drivers who filmed the two UFOs underwater, and creatures who were repairing them outside of Canada's most secret Cold War military base. So if you're interested, it's called Impact to Contact. I think he has another book though, that a previous book. Let me see if we can find the previous book. Oh yeah, Dark Object. This is the one that I have. The world's, oh, this has got to be an old book. The world's only government documented UFO crash. I don't know if that's quite correct, but interesting marketing. And this one was written by Don Ledger and Christopher Stiles too. Stiles himself is an eyewitness to the Shag Harbour crash, having tackled one of the best documented and most top secret incidents in the annals of UFO sightings. What they have found out will astound and outrage readers. From mysterious surveillance 25 years after the crash to a sudden disappearance of written records, someone wanted the investigation stopped, but Ledger and Stiles now file their stunning report and reach a chilling conclusion about the dark object, what really happened, and what remains hidden today. Well, this is a little troubling to me, though, because this book was written, I guess this one was released in March of 2001. No mention of aliens, and Whitley Strieber's involved in this one. Kind of missed that. I have this book. Anyway, I'm always a little bit troubled. Whitley Strieber is one of the authors of this. I wasn't aware of that. All right, so anyway, there's no mention of aliens in the first book, and Whitley Strieber's involved in it. And then we get to the second book, which was published in 2018. So somehow 17 years passed, and then they found people seeing aliens. That's a little suspicious to me. Yeah. All right, we're going to bring in our very special guest here in a moment. But before we, I'm sorry, I didn't know that I did that. 1 second. We'll bring him in here. We got him in the back, sobering up.
I've been sober all day.
Oh, I'm just teasing you. Yeah, how you doing with that? I don't want to be too personal, but if you don't mind.
Good, pretty good.
Yeah, all right. I'm pretty good too. You know, it's a tough thing.
It is.
I still struggle, and I eat way too much chocolate. Did you ever hear that chocolate's supposed to deal with some kind of cravings?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I always tried using it for smoking cigarettes, though. So,
yeah, apparently, yeah. The one time I quit smoking for a long time when I used to, actually do that. But yeah, that's what I did. Chocolate.
Oh, wow.
So, what do you think of this case? But here, let me just tell you what I think first. This is one of those that people you can, if you want to shut me up, throw this case at me, because I can't. You can't get through this stuff. And but the one thing let me finish a thought quickly. The one thing about those books that troubles me is there's no mention of the aliens. So that's like an additional tack on. And to me, that's suspicious. Like, well, we need a new book to sell. Let's find people talking about aliens and tack it on to the original story. And it is interesting how these UFO stories, this one has genuinely stayed the same for many years. That's the first I've heard, by the way, of the aliens. I wasn't aware of that. But generally, this case has stayed pretty consistently the same information. But now we got aliens thrown in. But this is one of those cases that it's very difficult to explain this one away. It couldn't have been, it's got to be a real object. It had to be a real physical object that came down. It could have been an airplane or conventional aircraft or a military airplane or conventional military aircraft. What does that leave us with? And I don't want to go straight to aliens, but
right. But you don't have many options. I mean, other than it being maybe a satellite that crashed or, something like that. But that's the only other thing it could be.
I didn't think of that one, but satellites generally don't have like bright lights on them. So I don't know how this, and they described lights going on and off on the craft.
Yeah,
while it was gliding down. Yeah, so this is a weird one, and people are always asking me, bottled water, like, oh, you just say everything's fake. I'm not saying this one's fake. I don't know what this one's a mystery. It's a genuine mystery.
Well, the military response to it is kind of telling too.
Yeah,
the fact that they did all that.
Yeah. I mean, it was the height of the Cold War, though, so I was thinking maybe they thought it was if they thought it was a Soviet satellite or a Soviet piece of tech, space tech that came down, they might have responded exactly that way. And we have to view these things through the lens of history. So maybe they thought it was Soviet technology, or they did track it. There's various reports that they tracked it. First, I heard that there was reports they tracked it from Siberia to this location. Then I heard the story get a little grander. Oh no, NORAD tracked it out of space to over Siberia to this area in Nova Scotia. Yeah, the harbor.
Yeah, you know, those kinds of things, they don't. Even now, I mean, we all saw the thing with the blimps or the whatever they were flying over the U.S. that got shot down by the F-22s, and the one in Alaska and everything. We still don't have video from that. The only reason why we have video from the one we do is because it was over Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, and they knew somebody else probably had that video, so they let that one out. Yeah, and I don't know what the big secret is. If you know it's a Chinese balloon, and we all know it's a Chinese balloon, why can't we see the video of you shooting it down? And then, you know, I think one of the greatest things is that there's those missiles that they used. It's like 18,000. Yeah, they're like $18,000 or $80,000 a piece. So
the AIM-9s and the F-22s are $180,000 a piece. So,
yeah, we should send China a bill for that.
Yeah. Plus the amount of money it takes to fly an F-22 over a certain amount of time is just insane.
Insane. Yeah. I can imagine. Yeah. This is one of those things that we should just send a bill to China, right?
Yeah.
And I was looking at. I'm sorry. Thanks, Scrub J. We got a little bit of a delay, just so everybody knows. I don't mean to talk over you. I apologize. I'll see if I can't fix that. Waterboard the dolphins. They are hiding information, says Scrub J93. Well, thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. We appreciate you. And I missed another one as well. So we got the Debster with kind of generous $5. Praise to cash. We have Real Steel Rumblehead, kind of generous $2. Hard to be a skeptic on this one. I'm torn. Yeah, absolutely. Real Steel Rumblehead. And Scrub J telling us to waterboard the dolphins. Praise the cash. Thank all of you for kindness. We appreciate you.
Cash. So I was looking because I was curious. I was like, well, what kind of spy planes did we have in the 1960s or reconnaissance craft? And you have the SR-71 Blackbird, the EP-3, the D-21, and the A-12, all made by Lockheed. Really, the only one would be that could even move that fast is the SR-71 Blackbird. And if one of those went down, they would have shut everything down, like everything.
I would think if that at the time, I don't think that the Blackbird was a known asset, so they would have shut the whole town down and cordoned off the whole area and got every scrap of that thing. If it went down somewhere, they would get every piece of it, because they were a little paranoid about the Soviets even getting, imagine getting their hands on them. Did you know there's an old Clint Eastwood movie that my father loved called Firefox, which is exactly about, I think it's about the Soviets having a version of the Blackbird or something like the Blackbird, and Clint Eastwood's character gets a hold of it and flies it home or something to the United States.
Of course.
Yeah, but the Cold War secrecy was insane, so they would have reacted to get secret tech.
Did you know that the U.S. created shell companies to buy titanium from Soviet Russia?
Yes, that's one of the best parts of the SR-71 story. And for those unaware, the SR-71's our shell is made of titanium. It has to be to withstand those red hot temperatures at these Mach 3 and Mach 4 speeds or whatever it can go. It's been a while since Anyway, they faked out the only place to get that much titanium was from Russia. So they're building a plane to spy on Russia. They have to create these fake shell companies, and then buy all the
Yep.
titanium to make the Blackbirds out of the Russian titanium. Then when they're done, they fly them over and spy on all the Russian bases. It was that was like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's one of the greatest parts of the Blackbird story, which is kind of my favorite airplane. I'm not very excited by regular planes. Like regular plane, you know.
Yeah.
I like the SR-71 Blackbird, and I like the A-12.
I've been on enough of them.
Yeah? Enough what regular
Oh,
airplanes?
yes. Yeah, the A-10 is my favorite, one of my favorite planes, because it's just a gun with wings.
Yeah, yeah. And they every time they think they're going to decommission that, they have a use for it. Like that plane was supposed to be decommissioned. They were supposed to stop using them and come up with something new, but then they're so effective, and they used them in Desert Storm and Afghanistan and Iraq, you know.
And yep, all over the place. I don't think there's really a replacement for that plane. I don't think there ever will be, unless they can find another bigger gun to put wings on.
Yeah, and you know what else? I think the other reason I liked it is because I don't know if you remember G.I. Joe toys, but that was the Cobra plane. They just painted it like dark blue. And that was the bad guy's airplane in G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a troop support aircraft, though. Like if you're going to war, you want tanks and a whole bunch of those flying overhead. You know.
Yeah, I have friends who were in Afghanistan and Iraq that did close air support with A-10s, and they were like, every time you'd hear those twin engines coming, the Taliban would just run, because the next sound was just and
they don't call them tank killers for nothing. They're the A-10 tank killer, you know. Yeah, and then of course
30 millimeter depleted uranium round.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Pretty badass, you know. And of course the Blackbird. Yeah, so we did have some weird, you know, secret technology. It could be that. That's another possibility, and a possibility raised by some scientists.
It could be. I mean, people don't know that the F-22 program first became a thing in the 1981, and it didn't go into combat until the mid 2015, 2010s, like that. So you look at that development time, and I mean, they're working on F-15s in the late 60s, early 70s. So
yeah. And I'm just reminding everybody the link to join the show is pinned in the live chat. Yeah, and we welcome everybody. No nudity. I don't want to see any, you know, anything that I shouldn't.
Anything.
Yeah, so this one is one of those cases. I don't think this one will ever be solved at what it was. Maybe, but you would think enough, if this was some kind of secret craft that went down, enough time has passed now that they would probably let that out and just say, oh yeah, we were test flying this or whatever. They've never done that, either Canada or the United States. So just
yeah, and is Canada really going to be test flying sequences or platforms like that? They really don't have the budget to build the kind of things that the US does.
Yeah, and also, like, why would you know what I noticed? Maybe people didn't get that. Oh no, I did put it. I'll put it in the Discord again just to make sure that people get it. So what's going on with your hiatus there with Toby Waba? You're taking a break, right?
Yep, taking a break. Just getting through things. I'm still waiting on getting my own place out here in South Carolina. South Kakalaki.
Oh, that's a beautiful place, though. I love South Carolina. I love the Carolinas in general.
It's very nice.
Everybody's very laid back there. That's one thing you notice, right? Did you notice that? Everybody's like very calm and laid back. And I mean, I don't know. I'm from the city where everybody's in a bad mood. And one of the things that's just the way it is. If you live in the city, you're in a bad mood because everybody's stacked on top of one another. But I noticed the further you get from the city, the calmer and kinder and gentler and more laid back people get. Like here in the suburbs, we're not really in a bad mood, but we're not in great moods. But then when I go
Right.
to the mountains, it's further away from the city even more. So everybody's much more laid back and in better moods. And even just stupid stuff. Like if you go in the city and you go into like a McDonald's, the person that waits for you is nasty. And you just expect that. Like, okay, you work at McDonald's, you're nasty. But in the more rural areas, they're in better moods. You know, they're okay.
They are.
They're not like nasty to you. In the Carolinas, it's even better. Like maybe that Southern hospitality. And I love the accents on the women. I went to some diner and they were like, "Yeah, sugar." They just kept calling me sugar, honey.
Oh yes.
You know, I asked her for what kind of pie they had or something. She's like, "Oh, we got peach pie and we got peach cobbler. Everything's peach. Yeah, just peach
Yes.
everything."
The closer in South Carolina you get to Georgia, it is all peaches.
Yeah. So I don't know what else to say about this case except that it's one of those enduring mysteries, right?
Yeah, and you gotta love those ones. Those ones are they're so much better than just the standard run of the mill. I saw a blue orb fly over my house and took this video of it, and now, you know, UFOs, aliens.
Well, that's why this is one of the better cases, though, because all too often in UFO land, what we get is just a story. And this one's got 12 people's stories, plus more military witnesses chimed in later. Plus, there's all these documents, there's news reports, there's radar, and perhaps sonar data. I don't know that anybody's ever gotten that to be made public, though.
That would probably be the hardest to get publicized out of even radar data, sonar data, just because of the subs themselves they're never going to release that.
Yeah, I'm going to reach out to this author. Maybe we'll do a follow-up and hear about the aliens. I'm a little concerned with that. Like, oh, wait a minute. All of a sudden there's aliens now? There was never aliens. Now you needed a new book and you sold a new book and now there's aliens. It's the tack on, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like Rendlesham. I once liked that case, but then they just keep adding more and more shit to it. It's like, oh, no, there's binary messages and you know,
he touched it and received psychic
time travelers. There's time travelers now, and then he's seen a some kind of in the original story. Nobody said aliens or anything. It was like pretty. It was much more grounded in reality of what may have happened. But then as time went on, they kept adding things to it. And there's a new documentary now. We got binary messages now. When he touched the craft, he's mental communication or something with aliens or seeing an alien or the tack on.
Yeah, it's like the school kids one in Africa where now it landed here instead of here. It landed in the middle of the football field and not over by some trees away from it. And
I saw Steve Long is in our live chat and he's been posting those discrepancies and killing my bubble on that. He killed my disclosure boner on that case because I looked into that case and I didn't think there was very much to it. I think people were leading. Some of the people that were interviewing those children were leading them in a certain direction. And it's a lot of kids telling a story, but I've never put much credence into the case, but still I wasn't aware of all those discrepancies. Right. That's a big discrepancy. Like, oh, first it landed over there and now we're saying it landed over there. They can't, if you can't keep the story straight, it's likely not a true story.
Yeah, and there's a big difference between landing in the middle of the football field, which is soccer for the rest of the world, and landing in the
you got to specify that. Yes.
A soccer pitch is much different in size than a U.S. football field.
So you think that case is likely not, there's nothing to that one based on all these discrepancies that are popping out of everywhere?
I mean, they were children. There's going to be discrepancies over the years. I would probably take a grain of salt with it and not take it for face value, like the whole story and even the discrepancies, because you're going to have people who are going to come out who maybe weren't involved in older documentaries and weren't getting the limelight that their classmates were, and who are now trying to get that, and researchers who want to revisit the same topics over and over again and say that they have new evidence, they have new material, and just to sell a hour-long,
there's still people
rehash.
coming out with new Roswell stories somehow, and that's 70 years old. It's like, did you literally dig up a new witness? Because where are you getting this stuff from?
Like the whole town of Roswell from the 1940s has been interviewed a million times over, and probably somebody with a Ouija board trying to contact the spirits.
Well, there definitely has been, when all else fails and you got no more material to make anything to sell stuff with, you know what you got to do? You got to pull out the remote. No, you pull out the remote viewers. You pull out the remote viewers. They're doing that with this Bob Lazar documentary. They're going to remote view the alien base where they're really doing this. They're going to have remote viewers remote view the secret lab with the alien spacecraft that Bob Lazar worked on. Yeah, they're going to have remote viewers. That is, when you have to pull out the remote viewers, that's a level of desperation,
Yeah, and you know what? I crack up every time I hear people call that S4, because I spent 9.5, almost 10 years in the Army, and S4 was like the communication shop for the brigade and battalion. So every time I hear it, like, secret S4, I'm like, those guys are such idiots. S4 is a designation for a
wasn't it actually it was like a radar shack. There is a real S4 that's a radar shack off of Tonopah test range. Mm-hmm. So and I've heard that Bob Lazar's father-in-law worked there. So maybe, just maybe, he heard about S4 from his father-in-law, but don't let facts get in the way of a good story, right?
Mm-hmm. Because
people are arguing in the live chat. Because you know what, this is one of those times where the very skeptical people came here and they're not happy because I can't just say this is bullshit, for 2 hours. And I'm sorry if that's what you came here for. Everybody's been asking me, show me a case you think is really not fake or mysterious or maybe aliens. Hey, this one may be one of them. I can't explain this one. There's too many layers of weird here.
Yeah. And, we're not getting into ghost dimension weird like I've been seeing across UFO land lately. But I think this is one of those cases where it's not just like somebody made it up and other people just got in on it. When you have military action like that and people telling people to shut up and not talk about what they're seeing down in the ocean that they're using their sub hunters for and all that.
Vancouver guy. No, I did this because it was the anniversary, but Vancouver guy says Stephen only did this show because on Twitter last night people were saying Stephen is just an arch debunker who thinks this is all BS and his audience is just afraid of the alien reality. No, Vancouver guy, I did the anniversary. It happened on October 4th, and I wanted to do this yesterday, but I wanted to read more into it and dig a little more before I just, it's best to have facts in hand before putting mouth in gear. So that's why I did this, because it was the anniversary. And for those unaware, we did the Benny and Barney Hill case on the anniversary of Benny and Barney Hill. So we're a day late, but hey, they were still searching for the thing on October 5th, 6th, and 7th. So we're still okay. That's why we did it, because of the anniversary. And for those that, people say a lot of things. They don't know what's in my heart or mind. And people say things. Why would I spend so much time and energy if I thought there was nothing to any of it? There is cases like this that keep me interested.
Mm-hmm. And I'm a skeptic about it, even though I've seen stuff myself that I can't explain. But I would want nothing more than for one of these cases to be absolutely 100% true and the aliens to be like, yeah, we're here. What's up? I would love that more than all of these. Just
it would make the world a
cases.
much more amazing place if that happened. That's what I always say. I would love for their like I would love it if this what do you call it? This David Grush, I would love it if he dropped a whole bunch of evidence and it all turned out that he was telling the truth about everything, and the government does have alien spacecraft and we did recover non-human bodies. I would love that.
Oh, that'd be great. Because then it's over, right? Then there's disclosure and we can pack our bags and not have to talk about speculating on things instead of just knowing. Speculation and knowing are two very different things.
Yeah,
especially when it comes to this. Then everybody's going to talk about ghosts after that. Everybody's going to be a ghost professional.
Yeah.
Ghost dimension and orbs.
Well, I keep saying that I'm going to get into that. I got all this stuff that I never do anything with. I got a bunch of, I got magnetometers, and the only thing I don't have is the ghost box because I think that's stupid. Like,
I have a theory about those.
Yeah, for those unaware, a ghost box is like a box, and you just put it in a room, and it's supposed to allow the ghosts to talk to you. So, what is your theory on this?
So, my theory, and I would like to get one just to see what its coding is, because it's programmed, and I would like to see what the coding is. Because I guarantee that if you left it alone and didn't say anything, it would not do anything. But if you're sitting there talking, it picks up keywords and just randomly spouts out different words.
That's pretty good. And Vancouver guy says, when I read people harping on Cambion yesterday, I was like, I don't think so. I think Steven is a lot more open than you think about stuff. But like any of us, we just want evidence for claims. Yeah. And that's a sin in this thing. You're not allowed to say, excuse me, or you're not allowed to point out, like yesterday, we pointed out that David Grush has 40 anonymous sources. So his whole story is built on 40 anonymous sources that nobody's allowed to know who they are. Nobody's allowed to interview them, check their backgrounds, check their credentials. That's ridiculous. And they're making all this money off of 40 anonymous sources. It's crazy. But thank you for the support, Vancouver guy.
And, the government was like, yeah, you can talk about it. Go ahead. No, it's anonymous. I'm not allowed to talk about it. No, the government was like, go ahead. Yeah, talk about it.
I may be wrong.
Alien bodies.
Yeah, the Dobster, that's the thing that's a misconception. And people just keep repeating this lie. He can't show the evidence because it's classified. No, the Department of Defense said that alien bodies, alien crash retrievals, and alien spaceships are not classified. He could say anything he wants about those without any problems because they cleared him to talk about that. And Dawn Richards says, I mentioned 14 UFO cases, but I only count 9 so far. Have I missed some? I have to take a look, but I think maybe I'm wrong on the count. I thought I did. You're right. You're probably right. I didn't do. Maybe it was only 1. I have to check the our archive here, see what it is. We did a not so brief history of UFO crashes. I thought I did 2, but maybe I only did. Yeah, maybe there was only 1 of those. So if so, I apologize. I'm getting lost in the weeds myself here sometimes. Like I forget, I know it was I know where I got that. It was 14 whistleblowers. We went over 14 UFO whistleblowers and they were all full of it. And then the history, well, I think so. The history of UFO crashes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cases. But we've covered a lot of other cases. You have to go way back in that archive. There's a lot of different cases that we've covered. This is one of those weird ones that I can't explain this one away. So here's for you true believers. Maybe this one was aliens. I can't say it wasn't, and I can't say that the people that are the witnesses are full of it or just nobody's really seeking the limelight in this case too. That's one of the other reasons I like this one. Nobody's cashing in.
No, none of that. And then when
compare that to Rendlesham, it's like they just treated that case like a debit card, dude. Every time they needed money, let's get another documentary going. Let's get another TV deal. Let's get book deals and speaking fees, and they made careers out of it.
Well, I've noticed that South America has become a hotspot for new UFO crashes and alien attacks and alien bodies. And honestly, I think they just found an area where they can go in somewhere and just get people to talk about whatever. I mean, and the Peru thing with the aliens attacking the villagers and then the government saying, oh, they're miners with jetpacks. And I was like, okay, really? Anybody who knows how long you can fly a jetpack knows that that's probably not true.
Yeah. Yeah, that is weird.
That one was weird.
Definitely.
And I was in Peru last year. I was in Peru a year ago in about 3 or 4 days, 3 days. And I never saw any people on jetpacks. I mean, the country's a poor country. I don't know who's buying.
Where are they getting these jetpacks from? They can't even afford like houses and food. What the hell?
Yeah, I've got pictures from Peru, from Lima and Cusco and a few other places where it's like you think that the U.S. is bad and some of like inner cities are bad. You have no idea what bad is.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. But I don't know. Go look at Kensington and Philadelphia, though. I think that's as bad. It's zombie town over there, you know.
Mhm.
And you know, sometimes people give me crap, and I just, you know, oh, you grew up here? I'm like, yeah, like, you know, that's where I'm from, you know, and that's why I moved.
Mhm.
Because eventually we lived not in Kensington, but in the nice neighborhood, but it wasn't far from Kensington. And then the Kensington came in, you know? So like everybody that has a job lives in the nice neighborhood next to Kensington. And but all the tweakers and crackheads and the pill poppers and the heroin addicts come to the neighborhood where they can steal. They do that every day and night. They just come there and steal enough to go sell it and get their fix for the day. So we're constantly battling tweakers, like all the time. They break in your car. They break, you know, it was terrible. It was time to move. And they put a safe injection site like a few miles from my house. So I knew like this is going to get worse. And it has gotten so much worse since we moved a few years ago.
Yeah, I grew up in Detroit. So
wow. Detroit Rock City.
In the 80s and 90s. So yeah, I'm well aware of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it happens, right?
It does. It definitely does. The last place I lived when I was working as a contractor for the government in Fort Eustis, Virginia, we had 5 shootings in one summer within 100 yards of my townhouse.
That's terrible. Yeah. I mean, I got a real lesson in violence growing up because one of my friends got beaten to death with a baseball bat by a gang of people, and he was only 16 or maybe he was 17 years old, and I didn't know him really well, but I knew him well enough to know what a tragedy. I mean, the guy was always really nice to me, and like I walked like miles to my high school, and he had this beat up old car, and every time he would drive by and see me, and then he would stop, you know, screech and drive backwards on a one-way street, like, and get me, and I would get in the car with him. Yeah, he got beat up and killed, and it was over stupid. It was over a girl, you know.
Like it always is.
He talked to a girl he shouldn't have. So this guy and a bunch of his friends came and they beat the guy. They beat him really bad. That was you know, the kind of violence that was just like around. It's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I you know, once you have kids, you go, I want better for my kids. I'm not having them grow up with that kind of stuff. But then now I worry that they're going to be too soft, though. You know, I feel like they're not going
to be tough enough.
Yeah, I got to drive them down to Kensington to have lunch once in a while. See this shit? You better behave. We're going to get you an
behave, or we're moving back here.
Yeah. No, it is a different experience to live in, like, I guess you could call where I live now like an affluent area. Like there's a lot of Karens. Nobody puts up with any crap here. Like you got to be a good neighbor, or they'll make sure you're not living here anymore. Like, Yeah, it's a different world.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Well, I don't
Well,
think
that's why we initially. Oh,
you wanted to
I was
move
to say that's
to
why we initially moved from Virginia to Kansas.
Kansas.
Yep.
How was Kansas?
Extremely quiet.
There's nothing but cornfields in there, right?
The county that I lived in had more cows than people.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
bizarre. What did you work there? What were you doing there?
Yeah, I was the maintenance and operations director for the school district
Well, that's a good job.
out there.
And you decided to move from there? You didn't like
Yeah,
it?
it was. It's not why I live in South Carolina.
Wait, I don't understand.
That was the whole divorce, get out thing.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, man. I didn't know that. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I feel bad now for bringing it up. I apologize. But I
No,
hope listen, I hope you're happier now than previously.
I'm getting over it.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Yeah. I everybody that I know, dude, is everybody that I know. I'm like the only guy that I know that is still married out of all of us. Well, a lot of us got married around the same time or, whatever. It's difficult today. Most people don't stay together. What is the divorce rate? It's got to be 60% now.
I think it is 60, 65%, something like that.
Wow. Yeah. So imagine, I don't know, I'm not a gambler, but imagine if you knew, like, I didn't think about that when I got married. Like, imagine if you did anything else and somebody said, you're going to have a 65% failure rate. Like, you have a 65% chance of this going really bad for you. Would you have still done it,
Probably not.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm pretty boring. I've been with the same woman forever. I think forever,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you're not doing Toby Waba, are you guys going to be doing new shows soon or?
Honestly, I know everybody's just kind of taking a break with Bree being so busy and Bobby being so busy because Bree does the whole contact in the desert stuff. So
I was going to say that, but I didn't know if I could. So
yeah,
Bree is like involved in the running of Contact in the Desert, and I'm sure to organize an event that big takes months and months and months, doesn't it? I would think.
Yeah, and they do multiple things now. So it's more than just one thing a year that they're involved in. So
I think that's the biggest UFO convention of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was there this year at the one in Palm Springs.
Yeah, I've never been. I don't know. Never. Every year people tell me to go, and I never have gone. I almost went once, but travel for me is very difficult because I have an autistic son, and he doesn't respond well or listen to anybody but me. So for me to go somewhere for a week is like really difficult, like maybe a weekend it's okay, but not for a week,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we were there for 5 days, 4 or 5 days, something like that.
Yeah, weren't you guys there just this last year? Right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How was that experience? It
was pretty eye-opening. I did. I had a lot of fun. It was expensive. I spent way too much money on everything. But
what were you buying? Like crystals and shit? Or like you're not?
No, I don't buy that shit. No, just food and booze.
Yeah, I'm sure it's $10 a beer there, right?
Like,
or whatever.
Might as well be. It's like $18 cocktails and stuff like that. It's California. It's Palm Springs. It's just.
I would have went and found a state store, dude. Just buy one glass from them or cup from them. I don't know. We were somewhere where they give you this big drink thing, So then we just filled up the drink thing with our own shit and just walked around the resort like we're not paying $10 a drink here. No, But then
no, I think one morning I got Eggs Benedict and it was like $27 for Eggs Benedict, and I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, but you know what? They know you're like on vacation, so that's when they get you. You
Yeah.
know, when that's
Mhm.
why I really like the cabin where we have our cabin because it's not like that. It's just regular prices. You know, like you can go get a steak dinner for like $15 and it's amazing. You know,
Mhm.
and everything is kind of priced accordingly. It's not they're not, and they know it's a resort kind of area. I
Yeah.
think maybe in the winter they raise their prices when the skiers come in because it's a
Mhm.
mountain town, you know, and everybody goes skiing there in the Poconos. But during the summer, it's just regular old, you know, it's
Yep.
not bad. It's not bad at all. Linda Moulton Howe killed those cows with a shovel. I was mean to old ladies. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Well, I don't think we're going to have any more takers for our panel, but it's my
Me
fault
neither.
because I did not announce it. But thank you for saving me. Otherwise, I'd be sitting here waiting, looking foolish. So I appreciate at least we had a discussion about the case. There's nothing much to
We did.
say. This is
Yeah.
a weird mystery. I can't explain this one.
Yeah. Me neither. I think it's a good one though.
It's a good case. Now I got to buy that guy's book and hear about the aliens, though. Like I feel like I've got to be fully committed and get to the rest of the story that got probably. Don't you think that got tacked on? Do you think that got tacked on to sell another book?
Sure did. I'm sure everything was covered in the first book, and then it was like, oh yeah, I could 20 some odd years later, I could write another book.
Yeah, and
At least he didn't
interestingly
say it
though,
was
Whitley
like a
Strieber
mention
was
of
a
Bigfoot.
Whitley Strieber was a co-author of the first book. There was three authors,
Mm-hmm.
but Whitley Strieber is not involved in the second book. And I think it's funny that the second book is $25 and the first book is $8.
Yeah.
So that's quite a markup here. But if you're going to have
Mhm.
stories with aliens, that's the $20 markup, I guess.
That's it. That's it right there. That
Yeah,
alien, man.
I'm going to email Whitley Strieber and see if we can't get to these authors and see if he will. Yeah, Real Steel. That's fine. Real Steel. It's okay. We had a condensed panel this evening,
Mm-hmm.
and I appreciate you joining. I'm gonna throw you out, and we'll wrap things up. I think we've done our. You know, I've done what we could here.
Done our due diligence.
Hey, are you using a USB or is that an XLR mic?
It's a USB. It's a Blue Yeti.
Blue, yeah. Okay, that's what I'm using too. I'm looking for suggestions for XLR microphones because unfortunately, to do this new set with the on in-person guests, I need to use XLR mics and an interface. You can't use
I
like two
think,
USB microphones at once
what
unless
is
you
it?
use weird.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. I
That's
don't know.
probably, yeah.
I'll look into it. But I appreciate you being here and
Yeah,
pick
no
a
problem.
topic. We'll do a show together. You know, you got the
I will.
time.
Yes, I do.
We'll figure it out. Yeah. All right.
Absolutely.
Thanks for
All
being
right,
here. We appreciate you, Bottled Water. All right. There's our wonderful panel. And we'll take a few more questions and comments from the live chat. Put them in all capital letters. Otherwise, we're going to bounce on out of here. That's interesting, Scrub Jay. I did not know that. I worked as a wildlife biologist in Southeast Oregon back in the 1980s. Did you see Bigfoot? There's a lot of Bigfoot sightings in Oregon. And somebody mentioned circuit bending. Oh, it was Vancouver guy. Vancouver guy mentioned circuit bending, which is a very interesting thing to do to electronic toys, synthesizers, keyboards, where you purposefully short circuit them to get them to make weird noises. And on one of my albums, I really felt like the album wasn't done and it needed a bunch of overdubs, if that makes sense. Like I thought, oh, I've got to add some parts to this because the music was very drum and bass and kind of sparse. There wasn't much to the music. So I got a bunch of old keyboards and circuit bent them. And it sounded like they were falling apart while you were playing them, but it was kind of appropriate for some of the songs. So I love circuit bending. It's just one of those weird things, right? Dawn Richardson says, thanks, Stephen, Bottled Water, Mods, and chat. Yeah, we want to thank everybody. Going forward, I think I have to publicize these more deep dives a little better. And, I'll try to do that. And also, someone asked if we are still going to cover the other half of that David Wilcock interview. Maybe we'll do that. If people really want to see that, and I guess we'll do it. I don't know how I'm going to sit through another hour of him, but we'll do our best to do that for you. So we want to thank our kind and generous benefactors again, the Debster, Real Steel, Rumblehead, and Scrub J. We want to thank you, kind and generous benefactors. Oh, and don't let me forget, we definitely want to take a moment to thank Zizix, who I'm not sure I saw in the live chat, but I'm sure he'll watch the replay. So thank you, Zizix, who gifted, I'm told, 50 or 60 memberships to members here, which is pretty amazing. Very, very generous people that we have here helping the show. And we appreciate each and every one of you who is helping us to continue the journey here. We're a viewer-supported show, so we appreciate all of you viewers throwing a couple of bucks in our hat. I can't thank you enough. So, yeah, that's all we got for you. I'm going to bounce on out of here. But before I do that, I do want to shameless plug myself. This Saturday night, I finally fixed the problems with this album. For those unaware, I've made a bunch of albums, and the last one in the series, it's called the Purge series, is called A Very Dark Place. And this Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll be doing a debut. See that? We thank Travis Taylor, who became a Praise the Cash member. It showed up in the live chat, in all the live chats. This one was active. So in just 45 hours from now, you can join me in the live chat for my album, A Very Dark Place. And this one is really special to me. First of all, I think it's the best music album I've ever made. I hope it is. It's extremely different from a lot of other albums that I've made. But then again, some things are similar. But I took a lot of chances and did a lot of strange things, weird chord progressions, and just try to be different and not just repeat myself in this. But then also, we went on out on an artistic limb for this to do a premiere, because one of the things that's challenging is like, okay, I'm going to make a music album, but then I'm going to put it on YouTube. Well, you need some kind of video to go with it. And sure, you can use stock video or something, but we ended up doing this ridiculous AI animation that really kind of matches the music. After all, the album's called A Very Dark Place. It's sort of a nightmare-scape that you're flying through for the entire length of the album. This was generated with kind help from Mr. Ian, the AI whisperer. So it's a music album, but we've also done a very special animation that goes throughout the entire length of the video. I think it's pretty unique and pretty interesting work. We'll have the debut for this at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday night. This Saturday night, October 7th. Hope you'll be here with us to share in that journey. I worked really hard on that album, probably longer than I've worked on any, well, maybe not. My first album took me like 4 years to make. So this one wasn't quite a 4-year effort, but it was a few years of pecking away at songs and the production for it and the vocals for it and the overdubs and the mixing and the mastering. And for those that, are curious, that was the delay. It was mastered not by me the first time. I sent it to a mastering house and they mangled it. At least I thought so. There was several songs on the album that were just overdriven. They just mixed it too hot, or what is commonly called too hot, and it would sound like staticky on almost everything I played it on. So I knew that they had sort of mangled the mastering job, and this is one of the lessons I've learned is you can't some things are too important to just pay somebody to do. And interestingly, they wouldn't refund my money or fix it. They gave me an awful lot of excuses, so I decided, okay, I'll just master it myself. Anyway, this Saturday night, 9 p.m., I'll be in the live chat. I'll be at the cabin, probably chilling after a hard day work. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get some work done at the cabin, but I've been rained out for probably 3 weekends in a row. And they're predicting rain for Friday night, Saturday, and I think even Sunday now. I can't win up there. And the difficult part is at the cabin right now, I don't have inside work. I have outside work to do. So if I go drive all the way to the cabin and then it just rains all weekend, I'm just kind of sitting around in the cabin trying to figure out something to do to be useful. Usually I work on the show stuff or just work on something. But hopefully we'll have better weather this weekend. I'm looking forward to getting some cabin time in. I may do a live stream from the live show. Of course, I say that every week, and then I get busy and I don't have time or I don't do it. If it rains, I'm definitely doing a show from the cabin for sure. So that's all we got for you, friends. I guess to wrap up, I would just say that this one's for all the people who asked me, what are the cases that aren't bullshit, Stephen? What are the good cases? This has been an enduring mystery for decades. I'm not sure that this mystery will ever be solved, but that kind of makes it more interesting to me. I mean, never say never. Maybe a new witness will come forth or new documents will be revealed or somebody will finally get to the mystery of what actually came down from the sky and went into the sea in Shag Harbour in October of 1967. I'm going to get that other book, by the way, and I may try to interview the author and hear about the aliens, but I'm a little suspicious that decades after the original event happened, now we've got people telling stories about aliens related to the event. But if you want to see that, let me know in the comments. I'll try to contact that person and get them to come here, and we'll try to hear about the aliens of Shag Harbour, which is new to me. I've never heard that before. So that's all we got for you, friends. I want to thank all of you kind and generous benefactors. We want to thank you supporters, especially supporters who are, just supporting me, especially in a difficult, when there's difficult times. That's when you find out who your friends really are. So that's all we got for you, friends. Until next time, my name is Stephen Cambion. Good night, and God bless all of you.
Here's what I want you to do. If the Lord is speaking to you, ushers, bring some baskets down. Just leave them there. I'm not finished. I got one more point to make. This is what I want you to do. Thank you, Miss Marguerite. I brought her because I want you to understand that the work must continue. This is not a plea for money, it's a plea for partnership so that we can be what we're supposed to be. I just need 497 people to say, I'll do 300.